And this is my third point, what is the fallout for perception? Have new member states been perceived as awkward partners, as restive competitors, or as active friends? And I think it's especially 4 or 5 elements which have shaped perceptions and which to some extent are misperceptions. The first one is, I think, new member states are seen as, I once called it, solidaristic egoists. So this assessment results from a consistency we see in many of the new member states to fight for the national interests, at some point even using the last resort like a threat of veto. At the same time, they're calling for more solidarity being a core element of European integration. And it has been difficult sometimes to find the appropriate balance between them. Second, there is a certain, I think this is a misperception, that new member states are anxious to defend national sovereignty. Since after regaining unlimited sovereignty after 1989, they're not ready to transfer national competencies to Brussels. I think this is a proper description for some ideological strands in some of the new member states, but it is not a general or overall tendency. On the contrary, I will talk about this a bit later. The third element of the perception is that new member states are intrinsically pro-American and have problematic relations with Russia. I think this perception is increasingly watered down. I think there is an increasing awareness that the interests of the new member states differ, and that it's rather countries, investment countries like the Baltic states and Poland, because of their geopolitical situation and their historical legacies, which have these special relations with Russia. And even in the case of Poland, we see an interesting dynamics at the moment. On the other end, we have a couple of new member states which are rather pragmatic or even pro-Russian, and which are very critical about what the US does. So I think this is changing. Now, a fourth element, I think there's a perception that there exists a value gap between old and new member states. And I think there is some evidence that societies in Western Europe and in post-transformation Central and Southeastern Europe are based on different values. Or that certain values are shared more or less widely by these societies. And maybe this is the real, the marrow of talking about old and new Europe, that the value hierarchy in post-transformation Europe differs from that in Western Europe. The last element I would like to point at is in the perception of new member states that they are fragile in terms of their domestic political scenery. I think this is something, as I mentioned, which has been pushed by the Kaczynski twins, by Robert Fico and his coalition in Slovakia, and so on. Although this also might change because we have cases of new member states which have a relatively stable party system, and we have member states where we are observing the emergence of new parties which are not problematic at all when it comes to the policy outlook.